thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy our afternoon with some memories from the Hamlin family. But first, we need to do a short business meeting, so I am going to call our meeting at 1:04. Grace is graciously will be doing our minutes for us. Our normal secretary, Chris, is unable to be here today. The first thing I would like to do is I am going to pass this. Once a while I'm talking, you can, if you are not a paid member at this time, please put your name, and if you're interested, put your email address down also so we can send you the friendly reminders if we have another meeting or whatever you're interested in. We don't drive you crazy. You might hear from us once or twice a year. And if you are a paid member, you can just find your name alphabetical and just put a check mark to let us know that you're here. The other piece is just take one of these sheets. It's for the budget and other information that we'll talk about during the meeting. Okay? So if you would pass that along, that would be great. And also check the emails are showing there that are yours, so make sure they're right. If they aren't, you may correct them while you're listening. The next thing, we would like to start the meeting with a reading of the minutes from our last meeting in the spring. And Lynn Osborne has graciously accepted to do that for us. Again, because Chris is unable to be here today. Give Lynn a moment. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Hartland Historical Society Spring Membership Meeting Minutes. This membership meeting was held at the Hartland School, East Hartland. Its theme was a kickoff celebration for the 250th birthday of Hartland becoming an incorporated town. The meeting was called to order at 7:09 p.m. by Joanne Grove, interim president. She stated that a short business meeting would be followed by the viewing of a 1986 Historical Society presentation given by a Hartland resident about their memories of the 1930s in Hartland and other historical tidbits. This will be followed by a slideshow, music, and of course cake. Hartland Historical Society Executive Board members, directors, and chairperson names were stated for the record, and a sign-in sheet was passed. Officers, Joanne Grove, President and Curator, Pat Davis, Vice President, Chris Anderson, Secretary, Bud Grove, Treasurer, and Grace Jones, Librarian. The directors are Carol Bluen, Therese Gunderson, Louise Hayes, Tim Kendrick, Siobhan Murphy, Hugh B. Parmalee, and George Ryan. Committee chairs, Cheryl Anderson for Gardens, Monica Segelka for the newsletter, Megan Lindgren, Hospitality, Mandy Nurge and Maureen Watson, Publicity, Lynn Osborne, Docents, Paula Seppi, House Maintenance, Joan Stoltz, Programs and Fundraising Items, Maureen Watson, Website, and Housekeeping, Sally Dewey. Secretary Minutes. Chris Anderson was asked to read the minutes from the past two meetings. Joanne made the motion to approve the minutes, Pat approved, and Maureen seconded. Note, after the meeting it was realized that only the minutes from the previous fall membership meeting should have been read. Joanne called for anyone interested in becoming a part of this society to support the continuation of its mission would be welcome. The society is in need of a president and an oral history chair. Remember, these are May's minutes. The treasurer's report was presented by Joanne. Our account balance is $9,496.89. No questions or concerns were received. Maureen Watson made a motion to approve the report. Carolyn Irwin seconded. All approved. Gaylord House activity was reported by Paula Seppi. There is approximately 50 gallons of oil left out of the 600 gallons purchased last year in the tank. Some drainage work at the house was done. A ditch was finished to help solve the water problem in the basement. Curator and librarian had no report at this time. Newsletter, Monica requested and welcomed anyone wishing to write or submit articles to get in contact with her. Programs and events. This year's house tour is planned for June 5th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Neil and Joyce Muller's. This is a members-only event. It was mentioned if you hadn't paid your membership, there is time, or you can pay it that day if you would like. Postcards will be mailed to invite all members. It was noted that Granby is organizing a coach rally to be held on October 8, 2011 at the East Granby Farms Complex. They are looking for anyone who may have a horse and buggy that would like to be part of the event. Get in touch with Joanne if you would like more info. Also mentioned was the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection is looking for a resident curator for the Worthen home that is in North Granby, right off Route 20 on Fox Road. It can be a private individual, a private not-for-profit organization, or a for-profit company who is interested in historic preservation, who wishes to live in or reuse a historic structure on state park or forest land. A resident curator should have the skills, knowledge, interest, and financial means to restore a historic building. If interested, get in touch with Joanne. Note taken that the Blueberry Picnic Fall Membership Meeting and the Santa Breakfast dates will be determined at future meetings. Oral history report, housekeeping, the Gaylord House has been cleaned and is ready for visitors on the first Sunday of each month from 2 to 4 p.m. Docent no report. Gardens, Cheryl Anderson has worked with the Boy Scouts at the Gaylord House to spruce up the outside gardens. Website. Maureen Watson suggested a blog may be a better alternative than a website due to no cost and ease of use. This will be discussed further at a future time. Hospitality, no report. Joanne stated that after a recent town meeting that Pat Davis and she attended for the 250th town anniversary plans, that a special meeting of the society is called and will meet next Tuesday, May 24th at 7 p.m. at her home. The purpose of the meeting will be to brainstorm and discuss the schedule of events for Hartland's 250th anniversary celebration and to determine how the society can play a part. The celebratory events for the townspeople that are currently being discussed are Monday, May 30th, 10 a.m., Memorial Day Parade and Ceremony at East Hartland Cemetery. Tuesday, June 14th, 2 p.m. at Hartland School, reading of the proclamation declaring 2011 as the 250th anniversary of the town of Hartland. Thursday, July 14th, 7 to 9 p.m., evening social to be held at the Town Hall, Hartland School, and churches. July 27th to 30th, East Hartland Volunteer Fire Department's 65th Annual Carnival with fireworks on Friday night and parade on Saturday night. Heartland Historical Society's Blueberry Picnic and Music Fest, date in August to be determined, Gaylord House and adjoining field, West Heartland. Saturday, September 24th, Heartland's 250th Anniversary Parade and Family Picnic. Saturday, October 29th, coming up, Halloween Chills and Thrills at Camp Alice Merritt. Saturday, November 12th, 5 to 8 p.m., Thanksgiving, turkey, and potluck dinner. And I think that's at the Bethany Church.
Yeah, we'll discuss, talk about it a little bit more.
Saturday, December 10th, 8 to 11 a.m., Hartland Historical Society Santa Breakfast and Gift Shop, East Hartland Firehouse. Our next executive board meeting will be June 16th at 7 p.m. at the Gaylord House. The meeting was adjourned at 8 p.m. A brief summary reading of events leading up to the incorporation of Hartland was then read by Maureen. The 1986 Hartland Historical Society presentation film was shown and enjoyed. This was followed by music, a CD entitled Connecticut Folk Songs, put out by Stanley Ransom, son of the founder of the Hartland Historical Society, and a slideshow of old photos of our schools, men working on roads and bridges, Camp Alice Merritt, and the CCC Camp Robinson. Cake, refreshments, and socializing rounded out the evening.
Thank you, Lynn. Now, I'm not too sure, only because I'm the interim president. Do we do a motion on those minutes at this meeting?
Yes.
Okay. I ask for a motion to pass those minutes as they're so read, unless someone has any comment or issue to change.
First, any corrections or?
Yep. Okay. Do I make a motion or someone else makes a motion?
I move we accept the minutes as read.
All right, second. Okay, in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? All right, all set. Okay. Second is a report from the treasurer, which is Bud Grove, and he's off and about with his son today, so I will represent him on our financial profile right now. On the sheet that was passed out to you, you can see how we did have a beginning balance of $11,881. And each line, easily enough to understand, we have the 250th t-shirts that the Hartland Historical Society designed and pulled together to have for sale for our donation, our celebration for 250th year. So we have those here today actually still for sale, and they will be around at the town hall too at some other point. The bank account close amount you see, $1,943, is just that. There was a miscellaneous account that had been open for many, many years. We closed that out because it had made no sense at this point. And a CD came to maturity, and that's the $9,391. In the future, that's to be discussed to figure out how we should reinvest money, because we're not too sure what vehicle we should use that makes sense for this amount of money. And that's why you see that large amount. The Blueberry Picnic, it's all obvious. Curator, cost supplies, donations, you can see they're very important to us. Fundraising sales, the Gaylord House, those are all of the expenses that are needed in order for us to keep our museum up, open, and working properly. So we have alarm cost, electric cost, our oil, which was Paul just put in, I understand, so we're no longer at just 50 gallons. We ended up getting the best price we could at the time, and they are filled at this point, right, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay. And then our Gaylord insurance, which is paid yearly, and our house phone. Hospitality, we had our house tour in June. The May meeting had a few expenses, but we did do some cakes and balloons, etc. that day. Membership, I wanted to say, I'm just pleased to say, we have 93 households that are members of our society, and that represents probably like 160 plus people. So terrific, glad to have it. The little memorial donations, again, that's anyone who does want a memorial. We do have like bricks if you want to have it put into the pathway, or we also have what's called a remembrance book. If you give a donation, their book goes into a memory book that we have at the house. We have our miscellaneous postage, and we bought our own tents this year. We've always begged, borrowed, and stealed. And when we used to have our Blueberry Picnic, we decided to get our own, and that was what that cost is. The newsletters, you can see that includes printing and postage. We send out 2 newsletters a year. And the Santa breakfast, that was from last year's. And then we have other miscellaneous dues, of course, like the Secretary of State, our post office, etc. And our telephone directory, that was done last year. That's just some leftover residual from there. So you can see we had a total income of $28,755, remembering that CD matured, and that's why there's a lot of extra cash in there, with our expenses of $9,178. So you see we do need all the support we can get to be able to continue our mission. And so the balance of today, we see at $19,576.52. Does anybody have any questions or issues with what you see there, concerns? No? Okay. I make a motion to pass the budget report as seen today. Anybody make that motion? Grace makes a motion to pass the budget. Second? Second. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. Okay, onward. As president, just bring up a few changes that have happened. Since our May meeting, we did get a formal resignation from Carol Bluen as a director. Was received in writing. So we would love, if anyone has an interest to take in that position, to let me know. We'll probably have, I guess, voting in the springtime. Resignation from Sally Dewey as a housekeeping chair was received due to family obligations. And so a big thank you to Carol for her time that she was able to give to us, short that it was. And big thanks to Sally for all the years of volunteering and keeping the bugs and dust bunnies away. Also, Joan Stoltz, and I see we don't see her here today, she's had to relinquish many of her ongoing contributions of time and duties to the society. So we thank Joan and Leon for all their years of unselfish and giving and their warmth of heart. So we miss them, but they are still in the background doing what they can. Now I'd like to thank and welcome Tammy Myers, who has agreed to step up to be our housekeeping chair. Thank you very much, Tammy. She's with us today. And also to Mandy Nurge, who has stepped in to take care of our fundraising items. Thank you, Mandy. I think that's all I have is to bring you up to a little housekeeping. As curator, I'd like to make a couple comments there. The other piece that you see here is a list of the donations that the Historical Society has received in the year 2011, and so we'll have some new things for you to be able to look at when you do come to the house. We got some genealogy for the Maria Ransom family from Grace, but Joan Griswold is the wife of Henry Griswold, who is a direct descendant tree line to the Nathaniel Gaylord that the house is named after. And there was actually brothers, a lot of Gaylords in town. And Annie Persis Gaylord Griswold is how the descendant piece comes in. So I could go on forever as far as trying to figure out the family tree. But anyways, Joan has gone through and has given us some wonderful things from the 1800s, early 1900s that come from Annie Persis Gaylord Griswold and some other family members. So, and then also Sue Pearson. We all of course know that Janet and her husband are no longer with us and had gone through some things and passed on some items that Janet and her husband had to give. And that's what you see here on that piece of paper. So we're very thankful for those. Just a bit of information. I can't recall whether at the May meeting I mentioned about the Camp Alice canoe. Those of you that received our newsletter might have seen the storyline in there. I think it's kind of exciting to think that there's a 1930 canoe that actually drove up the hill to make it to Hartland. And back in the 30s, it was dirt roads at that time. So the thought was that it had to go to a train station in Granby. And from Granby, it had to be picked up somehow. Well, at the parade, I'm chatting with Gordon Wright. It came to light that I don't know if anyone who was at the parade, the Woody vehicle, the Model A Woody that was in the parade, belonged to Camp Alice Merritt. So there's a very good likelihood that this vehicle actually was the one that went down the mountain and picked up the canoe and brought it back up to Camp Alice Merritt. I just love that. I think that's just so fun that things are connecting. For those of you who may not realize that there is a 1930 Oka canoe that's being refurbished from a gentleman up in New Hampshire who found it. And he's hoping to bring it back to Hartland and launch its first launch into the water back at Camp Alice in the pond. So I think things may be coming together to have a nice little reception or ceremony. And I say that too because I've been in touch with a woman named Joan Loengard. And Joan Loengard happens to be a friend of Joe Griswold, who has just given us these donations. Joan Loengard was a director at Camp Alice Merritt. And the more beauty to that is Joan's mother was one of the founders of the Connecticut Valley Girl Scout Association. And so she knew Girl Scouting right from day one. It was a attendee of Camp Alice Merritt, but then also became a director of the territory. So she's very tickled about what may become and is going to get in touch with her old buddies. And so we might, and anyone who may have attended the Camp Alice, I think we could have a nice little fun thing to happen next springtime or in the summer. To be discussed more with our executive committee. So anybody here who went to Camp Merritt, Alice, as a child? No? Okay. You think you did? It was open? It was still open? I know that I thought it left town and when did it leave? In the 40s or something? Went up to when was it? Was later around?
That would have been in the 60s.
The 60s it left Hartland and moved up to
the day camp.
Okay, as opposed to an
Girl
overnight.
Scouts though.
Yeah.
It was Girl Scouts. Yeah, back in the 2030s it was overnight. They stayed, for weeks at a time. Okay. Now we'll go on to our other chairs to see if anybody has anything they'd like to speak about or mention. First we have our newsletter, and that group consists of Monica Segelka, she's our editor, and Maureen Watson typesets for us, and Mary Ransom does our mailing. Monica, anything to report or make a mention of? She can't talk, she has laryngitis. That's a new one. No, but they do a great job and get our newsletter out, so. Oral history, as we mentioned, that we do need a chair. And when I say I need a chair, it may not be somebody who actually does the interviewing to get oral, but maybe someone who would like to organize it and can find others that like to do that type of thing, and make sure it happens and makes appointments. And on saying that, I have found somebody who is a college student, and she was a classmate of my late son John Adam, and she is going to college to be a journalist. So I'm like, oh, Jamie Lynn, guess what you could do for me? So she's an absolute sweetheart, and she has agreed to do some oral history taking and maybe do some special features that could fit into our newsletter, or at least have for posterity, if you will. So her first assignment is to go talk to Anna and Edith Pasquarelli and do a little history with the two of them. And I think they're thrilled to death that that's going to happen. I did have a question. Did Helen Stewart Stiles get it done, Lynn, or not? She thinks someone came 10, 15
Yes.
years ago to talk to her.
She's the one in Rocky Hill, or?
She's in Cromwell, I
Yeah, I
think.
did.
Okay, so we have that one? We don't need another one from her?
Maureen has all the tapes on the new.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to look through what we had, so,
Yes,
but
yeah,
she
'cause I
mentioned
went
it.
there.
Okay. And that just brings to say, if anyone here in this room is interested in having oral history done on
And it's
self,
really,
or-
actually, I loved it. It's a lot of fun. And when you get there, you get to meet a lot of new people, and you find out a lot of information. Like, I'm married into this town, and it's fascinating. I really enjoyed it. And there's a lot of books you can look in the library that, help you with it. And then there's always somebody who knew the person you're going to interview, and they can help you say, well, ask them about this or ask them about that. So if anyone has the time, when you're working and you have kids, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I got to meet a lot of people. I did that when I first became.
Exactly, it looked like you did quite a few actually during
Well,
a certain
and
time period.
Sally's husband,
Helped out with that, okay.
yeah, would help me.
Yeah, so normally I think, hey Maureen, normally we think they used to put cassette tapes, they would we'd tape it, and then I do have someone in town who sometimes would actually does dictaphone as a work, and she could transcribe it. It's almost just if someone could go out there and get the oral, we could actually get it transcribed onto paper if we wanted to go that way. Because I know that can be hard, some people really don't want to be writing down something. It's very time consuming. But anybody who's interested, or if anybody knows anyone from town you feel should have oral history taken, please let us know, just to have that list of to-dos. The Gaylord House. Paul handles our Gaylord House, our oil, electric, telephone, alarm, insurance, maintenance. Paul, do you want to give us an update on what's going on at the house?
Yeah, okay. I think we've been almost living on getting our building fixed by the
You want to come up and turn around the other way? It'd probably
Yeah,
be easier for everybody
state
to-
grants. And as you all know, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we got a $30,000 state grant. And that grant gave us permission to do what we wanted to do. So what I did is hired people one at a time, and with that $30,000, we got a new roof, we got an upgraded alarm system, we got an upgraded electrical system, we got the house painted and scraped, we got a lot of things out. See, the 20 portion of the state, which I think was a nightmare, because this type of grant, we had to hire an architect to tell us how to spend the $25,000. And we had the architect draw up a drawing, which cost us a lot of money, and to tell us we had 6 beams to change in the basement and pour a little concrete, So, and we got the grant about 10 months ago, and up until now, through the red tape and everything else, we still haven't got permission to go ahead with it yet. We just got permission, we put it out to bid about 3 weeks ago. We had 5 bidders looking at the job. The specifications were that thick, scared everybody away almost. And we didn't get any bids. They were due last Thursday and no one bid on the job. So we extended it for 1 week. We think we have 1 bidder coming back. But everybody looks at it and says, for $20,000, I'm going to go through all this paperwork. We had to tell them, you got this thing from the state, they want to know if the old house ever had any coal in the basement. You know, and she had to verify that and all kinds of things. So we hope we get a bid, and we're going to try to dry the place out a little bit. The basement is wet. We did put in a drainage system, which helped. And we're now going to try to put a 4-inch concrete slab in the basement to dry it out. And we have, the basement's all made of old hand-hewn beams. So a lot of them are rotted out. There's 6 of them that we have to replace. And so we put 6 to replace and 9 more to replace as if we have the money per beam. But this type of grant is a waste of money as far as I'm concerned, you know. By the time you get 25,000, we'll probably get about 15 of it usable, you know,
Right.
which I could have almost built a new house for that. But we have to be careful when we ask for grants as to where they're coming from. There's different departments. In this department, we had 2 people come up and give us the okay as soon as we got the grant. When we went to get the grant, these 2 people had left the state to a different department. Nobody knew anything about it. Every time we applied, you got another paper back to fill out. But we're getting there. We hope we get this last bid and get that over with, so.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
And it,
I just have a question. That's not gonna, is it gonna change the floor down here, or is it still gonna be dirt too?
No, it's gonna be concrete.
It is gonna be.
Yeah, we gotta keep that moisture out, you know.
yeah, because at this point right now, what we've done is we finally actually put a dehumidifier in there that does run, and that's why our electric bill is gonna go up for a little while. But we saw we needed to do that because, believe me, we would go in there after the different changes of the temperature, and the moisture would sit on the labels, it would sit on the items, and there was actually mold, you know, going on the labels, and that means it's going on the clothing and everything that's in there. So we had to do something about it. And so at this point, Paul has put one dehumidifier in that's being drained down into the basement, or at least out. So everything now is really concentrating down in that basement. If we can get that dried up, it's gonna help. To take, but we'll get there, right, Paul? And then another mention just at the house is that Maureen Watson's in the process of doing the second floor over. We've taken everything off the walls, etc., and trying to fill in the holes and give it a nice new fresh coat of paint. So later, actually, if you do have an interest in going over to the house, please see me. I'll see if you do have an interest, because I am going to be going over there for a short while after the meeting. I'd be happy to let you come in and browse through the first floor. The second floor is not available at this point in time. And it will be the last time the house will be open until the spring, and unless you call for an appointment. Housekeeping, I don't know, Tammy, if you have anything you want to say at this point in time. She's just going to meet Sally on Tuesday, and then she'll go over the A's, B's, and C's of what is done over there. So, thanks again, Tammy. Docent, Lynn, anything that you want to speak about?
Well, this year, it ended the first Sunday of the month, October 2nd, so now it is closed until May, but I do have the new dates here, and I'm going to pass around the book if anyone would be interested in being a docent, which basically is just a tour guide. We're open the first Sunday from May through October, from 2 to 4. You get there about 10 of 2, put up the flag. It's really kind of easy, and you just talk to the people as they come in and answer their questions, and if you can't answer them, then we'll find someone who can answer their question. So I'm going to pass around, we need 2 docents for each month, and if you could put down your phone number as well as your name and email. I do need both, and we would love to have you, and we can do a training, so don't feel, oh, I don't know how to do it, because it's a fun 2 hours. It's not
a nice way
of
for you to
time.
peruse the house yourself and
Right, and
quiet
if no
time
one's there,
and learn about
you
the
get
articles.
to look through everything, which I find every time I go, there's something new.
Yeah.
And you can't memorize everything.
So if you don't know what date you might be able to use, if you're interested, you can get in touch with the other guys as you go along. It's something you can work
So I'm
with.
gonna start here.
All right. Gardens, Cheryl Anderson, if you go over there, Cheryl Anderson is an artist and has a great eye, and she's been actually taking care of our gardens, and we're switching off plants here and there, and she keeps it up. And I also want to mention our grounds really are kept up by Ed Baldwin, who actually is here with us today. He's the one out there that mows it all the time and keeps it from getting wild and crazy.
He does a
So
great
thank you
job.
very much, Ed. We never get a chance to say that to you. Appreciate it. We have our website. Maureen, anything to say today? We did mention earlier in the minutes from last time that we were further discussion about either a blog or whatever, so. Hospitality, Megan, anything neat? Okay. Mandy, how about anything as far as publications and items for sale? Any issues or
No, we're
things?
well stocked, and so please see me after the meeting if you'd like to purchase any of the items.
There you go. Programs, we're almost through here with the housekeeping, guys, thanks. The programs and events that are upcoming, which was mentioned, the 250 Town Celebration. One of them is being the turkey dinner potluck on November 12th. Look in your mailbox, the town is supposed to be sending a flyer, a postcard, or whatever. The Bethany Church is hosting this, and they are going to be helping a lot with giving crews to help in the kitchen, etc. And I think it's going to be pretty much a potluck, so they're going to be supplying the turkeys, and we are to bring our favorite side dishes. I'm not sure, they might be looking for an RSVP so they can figure out kind of how many people are going to be there. And they're going to do it from, I think, 5 to 8 o'clock. And my understanding is we're going to be live entertainment. Possibly our Mr. Baldwin and the friends of his will be playing. So I hope everybody thinks about it and come along and enjoy the evening. Yes?
Bethany's been asked to supply sweet potatoes or mashed potatoes.
Right, my understanding is I think they were going to have the First Church in Bethany maybe do some large pots of some basics, just so that they know they have something, and because they won't know exactly what side dishes will show. But I think to me, it's like everybody bring a favorite dish, and it always seems to work out in a potluck, doesn't it? So, the Santa breakfast is coming up in December 10th, so remember to bring family and friends to that. It's always a good day for sausage and bacon, pancakes and a Santa shop. Other projects that are going on, to reiterate, is we are putting together a Hartland Memory booklet. It's been in process for a few years now, but Judy Devlin is the editor on that. So anybody, if you still have articles or short stories you'd like to pass along, and it doesn't mean it has to be an old story. It could be something even more recent, whatever you feel could be in the Memories of Hartland book. So keep that in mind, and you can mail it directly to Judy Devlin. She's in the Hartland book, or let me know and I can get you in touch with her. I will open now if there's any questions or concerns about the Hartland Historical Society. Anything comes to mind that we should think about? We're good? Okay, so I think we will then set that for our next meeting, it was decided at our last meeting that we will not be holding our annual President's Dinner. We were going to integrate our November meeting with the town's turkey dinner. So those of us that are executive committee and chairs and executive directors are going to meet at Lynn Osborne's house at 3 o'clock on November 12th, and we're going to have our business meeting there, which will then continue to talk about Santa breakfast or any other issues, and then we will bring our shared dishes over to the turkey dinner, and we'll enjoy it together there. Now, bringing to that, they have asked us, the town in Bethany or whatever, that we will be cleanup volunteers. Aren't we happy? So anybody who is going to the turkey dinner, if you're willing at 8 o'clock to come back, or if you're there all night, if you'll stick around and be part of the cleanup committee, that's the part that the society will play for this particular celebration. So hope to see lots of us there. I will end the meeting at that, so the business meeting today is adjourned at 1:35. Get that right? Yeah. And now I would like to present our two guests today, and they are Joyce Signet-Castana and her brother David. And they are relatives of Ross and Claire Hamlin, who lived just a quarter mile east of where the Gaylord house is. And so they have a lot of memories to share. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I was passing around, I don't know if the pictures have gone around. I have a photo album. Oh, I thought they'd get passed around. I had the magnifying glass.
Look at that. If you could just take a look and then you'll know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Because when I printed them out, the writing on the bottom is so small, you can't even read it. Ross Hamlin and Clara Hamlin. Clara was my father's oldest sister. There's like 19 years difference in their age. She was the oldest, he was the youngest. So they were really kind of like grandparents to us because of the age difference. And they never had any children. And my cousin Albert came to live with them when he was about 10 or 11 years old. So he was like their son. And then we filled in.
He was another daughter's son.
Son, yeah. And her Aunt Clara's daughter died, and so they took in her son. And we spent every day off. When I think of it now that I'm older, my father would drive us down one night, go back home, and come back the next night and pick us up so we could spend one day there. I don't know what age I started staying there, but I was young, I know that. Probably 4 or 5. I would stay overnight, stay all summer. David got a little older and he would pack his suitcase and he was going to stay. And when my parents would get in the car to leave, David would cry and want to go home with them. But finally he outgrew that and he stayed.
Plus, I started crying a little too late sometimes. They were already gone.
But we worked, as we got older, we worked a lot on the farm. But to us it was fun. I mean, it just was fun. We did, and Uncle Ross taught us how to run all the machines except the mowing machine. No mowing machine. But we knew how to run the trucks that you had to crank like this. When my son-in-law ever said, "Do you know how to drive a stick car?" And I said, "Larry, I drove trucks that you had to crank to start them, never mind." But we hayed. I'll never know how many bushels of things with Aunt Clara and I. We used to shuck bushels full of peas, cut bushels of beans, shuck all kinds of corn, and everything got canned. She had a wood stove that ran 24/7, around 365.
Well, there was no electricity in the house.
Oh, yeah.
There was no electricity. We did have running water, and we did have an inside toilet. But everything else,
The state owned the property and they wouldn't sell it to him. So he wasn't going to spend money to run electric down there.
they had a telephone, though. We had a telephone.
Yeah.
Of course, when we first started going there, it was pick up the phone and talk to an operator. There's some pictures in there, you can see the phones in the
In the
background.
background, in the living room. Now it,
One with the tall type phone, and then one with the receiver type, but there were still no dials on it.
yeah. And David, I never did the milking of the cows. He didn't know how to run those machines and stuff. But every night after the cows got milked, we'd have to go up to the Gaylord house where their niece, Irene Shepherd, lived. And they had the separator there. And you pour the milk in and you crank the thing and the cream would go one way and the milk would go the other. There's just a lot of different things. They had pigs, they had chickens, they had cows, they had horses, dogs, cats, all that normal farm stuff. And we just had a ball there. We did. I mean, we'd work and do the hay.
Plus, we had a little extra help in the summertime. We had a couple guys who used to come up and help us out with the hay and the weeding of the garden. One of them's right over there, Dan Nelson and his brother Russell.
Yeah.
They were up there quite often. We've been friends for, 65 years or so. We've known one another.
Oh, you're that old?
No, he is.
Because you keep saying how much younger you are than I am.
But Russell and Danny used to come up
Yeah.
almost every day, I think, during the summer, and they'd help with the haying and the weeding. Now, my uncle would give us, we were just talking about it earlier, about 10 cents a row of corn, and you couldn't see the end of it.
To weed the
A row
corn.
of corn, you
To
know.
weed the corn. We thought that was a big deal, you know.
But
But we would, in the summer, we'd want to come down to Four Corners for ice cream. We'd hook up the old workhorse to the two-wheel wagon, hang a lantern on the back of it, and, I mean, you look at the traffic, you'd never do that today, but this was back in the 40s probably. We were old enough then to do the horses and stuff. And it was just our children will never have any clue of what a great life it was.
Or just the living in the house with no electricity.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
I
had
don't
a
know if any
battery
of you had
radio,
that
a
experience,
battery
but
radio.
It's quite an experience.
We'd sit in the living room with listen to the battery radio with the
Lone Ranger.
kerosene lantern, and Aunt Clara's washing machine.
Right, that was a gas engine on her washing machine. She had a kick pedal on it to start. Everybody in town knew what she was doing.
Right, Russell? Right, Danny?
The exhaust went out the side of the house. In fact, it pointed towards the Gaylord house, the exhaust, out of the washroom. But everybody could hear it.
Out of their kitchen window, we could look down through the fields and see the Gaylord house.
Now it's all,
Yeah, they knocked all the buildings
all the
down,
fields,
beautiful
everything.
barn. Well, you'll see in this little booklet here, a huge house. Aunt Clara and Uncle Ross slept out on the porch year-round.
no heat.
No heat. In the winter, they would lower the windows.
Yeah, they had storm
They
windows.
had the
that they
windows
brought
that you
down.
just, hooked up, but they would lower them in the winter. But, of course, you have feather mattresses and feather
Right.
blankets and everything else, but still. And we get the ice out of Hartland Pond. We go saw the
They
ice
had
out
an
of
ice
Hartland
house. Here
Pond.
again, no electricity to keep, refrigerate the milk and stuff, so
They had ice
they had a
for
big ice
cooler.
cooler and,
Big
for the
three-
milk. And put in these 150 pound, or 50 pound, I don't know what they were, big blocks of ice, yeah.
150 pounds. And,
Yeah.
well, tell about the flood, when it washed out the bridges
Right,
to
55,
Winston.
so in 55, they had you had the flood there in Winston wiped out, what, half the city of
Well,
Winston.
the
right?
bridges.
And so my father, my brother-in-law Bob, and myself, we came down. Bob's father had a little trailer, so my father bought a couple of these 150-pound kegs of ice, or blocks of ice, rather. And with the trailer, we brought it down, and it took us hours to get here. Now, I don't know, have any of you been to the Big E? Any of you been to the Big E in West Springfield?
That's where we live.
That's where we live, right in that area.
We live in West Springfield.
So right now, it's maybe a 40-minute, 45-minute ride to come down here without speeding. But back then, it took us, what, 3-4 hours at least, I guess, to get here. Because everything was wiped out, all the roads.
And the police didn't want to let you through.
Right. Yeah.
So they were bringing ice to save the milk,
Mhm.
so he could put the ice in his cooler. And they used to have a wooden stand out at the end of the street
Right,
where
on
he
Route-
put
on
his
20
milk.
here.
Right on 20.
And we'd bring it up from the house.
And the big milk trucks would come along,
Right.
and probably all the
They-
dairy farms.
Yeah, they probably all did that.
But at this time, they used to pick it up by helicopter, because they couldn't get there by road. So helicopters used to come and pick the milk up. During the war, Aunt Clara was a warden for the planes. She'd grab her binoculars and run out and call up somebody and tell them what kind of a plane had just flown over and what direction it was headed, etc. And then they built a little place down at the end
Right
of
across from the Gaylord house.
Yeah, it was
It's a garage
back.
now, I guess, but in that area, there was a little hut or office like.
Yeah, that was where they went
Where
for-
they worked for their civil defense.
Right. Then didn't it become first
It was
fire
the
station or
firehouse,
something?
right, the fire station for West Hartland,
Yeah.
before they built what they have now.
Now, David and Danny's older brother Russell, David and Russell rode their little two-wheel bikes from here to West Springfield.
Back in the day, ago years, 1 year, 1 year in balloon tires. Yeah, that was a big trip for us, especially going through the mountains between East Hartland and West Hartland. But, yeah, that was why we rode down, and I don't know, we stayed at my house for a couple of days, and we rode back.
They stopped at the state line and stood like this and took a picture of each other, half in Connecticut and half in Massachusetts.
But we had a lot of good times together. And then,
Where did Irene used to take us fishing, but she always had a gun because of the snakes?
Massachusetts, well, Granville State Forest, where you go in from off of Route 20 there, down a ways on the right, there's a pond. I don't know if it's swimming now, but at the time, there was swimming there. Yeah, and they bring them because of the snakes. So we'd
Well, there
go
was,
there once in a while.
there-
Most of the time, we went to Hartland Pond.
yeah.
my uncle would take us over in a pickup, we'd sit on the back, they'd drop the tailgate. Of course, you can't do that now, you get arrested. They'd drop the tailgate, we'd sit on the tailgate with our feet dangling. And there was a big dog
An Afghan hound.
used to come after us. Before we get there, we load up with stones.
He always come running out after us, yeah. I don't think we did anything to encourage that, did we?
Well, probably we did. But also now, there was a little event at the farm. For one, I can't remember what the reason was. My sister here and I had a little debate about something. She got very upset at me. And she went into my aunt and bought an egg.
I paid for the egg.
6 cents or whatever it was. She came out and broke it on my head. But I was very stubborn. I was not going to wash it off. So the egg ended up cooking on my head. But it got us to Hartland Pond that night so I could wash my hair. Because here again, at the farm, the hot water, it was kind of scarce. So you didn't, usually whether you took a bath or anything, you heated water on the stove. Here again, the wood stove. Everything. I don't know how my aunt cooked. Because everything was on this it's not like your burners that you're going to adjust on the stove. No, it's the wood stove. And she would cook Thanksgiving dinner, big turkey, pies, and she was a great cook.
Yeah.
Yeah, pies, cakes, everything. I don't know how she did it.
The only time, when she did her canning, she had an oil-fired burner out in that room where the washing machine was, and it was like 4 burners, and she had these big copper oval kettles, because she had to keep the heat at a set temperature to do the canning. Other than that, it was all the wood stove, Didn't matter if it was 100 degrees out. She never had any curtains in her kitchen, and it's probably because the wood stove was going all the time. Another time, it was at night, and they were in the living room, and
We weren't there.
we weren't there, no. And a plane kept buzzing the house, kept buzzing. They finally got up and they went out, and there was a fire from one of the lamps by the kitchen window, and this plane must have seen it. And fortunately, they put it out, they got the fire out.
Yeah, we had a few adventures like that. There was a fire. Well, my uncle used to hay different fields around here. There wasn't enough over Joe Bonavich's. Yeah, and I don't know if it was there or what. We were coming back that way. You remember that, don't you? The fire, the truck. Yeah.
Danny?
We were coming back on Route 20 just before we got to the Four Corners, right where the what's that line? The pipeline. Right? Just before that, this car came flying by the truck and yelled to my uncle who was driving. I was up on the road with this young lady that stayed with Irene, Barbara
Stacy, yeah.
I don't know what her married name is now. And he yelled, "You're on fire." Of course, my uncle stopped and the flames came up between the back of the truck and the cab. Barbara, as I recall, ran through it, jumped off, I think 1 step onto the hood, and then everybody from it wasn't your uncle's store then, it was Frank and Mary, and I think the store on the other side where they had operated another. He came up with all his pails, and then he started a bucket brigade. Didn't you and Russell show up someplace along the line there? But that's how they put the fire out. We had a bucket brigade, and they were going into the pipeline, getting the water out of the pipeline trench, put out the fire. But everybody that came by stopped, got in line, and helped out with it. It was quite a town or area gathering, the people jumped right in and helped. Yeah. But there was quite a few adventures. There was some we can't talk about.
I hear that quiet.
When you visited the farm, could you see the reservoir? Was it open enough to see?
No.
Because on the left-hand side, there's all the maple orchards, is clear.
But straight in from the Gaylord house towards my uncle's farm,
Yeah.
where you turn to go up to the back lot of the farm, there was an old road. And it came out where, Dan? Down
Halfway down the hall.
Yeah.
See, I don't remember that, other than being all overgrown.
And then people, we would get up some mornings or in the middle of the night and look out, and there'd be a car parked out in front of the house. And what it was is some of these fellas would come park his car and walk down the old road,
Yeah.
because of course they leave the fish. And then in the season, there, we had blueberries that would come.
Same ones would come every
Every
year.
year,
And
yeah.
we'd, of course, we'd sit out in the front yard and visit with them.
When
I
did
did
Ross
anyway.
start living alone? When I moved up here, he was living alone.
Clara died, in, what, 58?
58, December of
58?
58.
Boy,
We just didn't know him before.
I guess we did, yeah, but I was in the fire.
And her
I
sister-
remember once, early in the 50s, I was in the fire department, and there was a grass fire. And we went over there with the old fire truck and died it out. It was about 2 feet from the barn entrance.
Well, that was the haystack that caught on fire, and the lightning or something hit it, I
Yeah,
thought.
and we died it out.
Yeah.
And then a couple weeks later, me and some of the firemen went over and we were asking for donations, you know, for the fire department. And he got mad at us. He said we didn't die it out fast enough. He didn't give us a donation. He said we saved your barn, but he was mad about that. You know. That's the only time I really met him was when we.
Oh, so you have a good memory of them.
But he was alone, and then all of a sudden, he had cows, and then he started living with Irene.
Yeah, he sold
Yeah,
it.
they-
And then next time I went over, the MDC had a bulldozer, was knocking the old house down.
Yeah.
Yeah, they knocked
Yeah,
everything,
he
they
had
kept
a-
the barn for a little while, they stored stuff in the barn for a little while, but.
But I've been down there in the past year or two, and it's,
Yeah.
you can't find nothing.
No
I mean, the
trees.
Well, even the road going down there, you know, you got the gate up, but the road going down there is
Well, you look at the foundation of your house, and it doesn't look big enough to take that house.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it wasn't a full cellar.
That's what it.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't a full cellar.
Yeah.
But see,
And,
they had to he had to do logging.
Because they
Because
burned
there again, no electricity or anything, they didn't have oil, all the heat was wood.
Wood,
Yeah.
wood stove and the wood in the
Yeah.
furnace, yeah.
Yeah.
I have not gone down, I don't wanna see it, I just wanna keep the memories of what it was like.
Yeah, well, there's nothing left.
No,
There's nothing to
and
see
he's
now.
already said that, so I
We
said, I don't
burned
care.
the ice house down for the NDC, and we burned his barn down after, because the kids was knocking it apart, it was
Yeah.
getting dangerous, so we
Yeah.
burned that down.
Yeah, they used it for a while, like you said, the barn for storage and stuff. And plus there was an old shed and a garage over on the west
Yeah.
side there.
That's
all.
right, they had rabbits over there too, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just a wonderful, wonderful time in my life anyway, I'm sure.
At the time, I don't know, all the time we thought it was a great experience, now that you look back.
Yeah, when you get
Like I said,
older.
just living without electricity.
Yeah.
And at night, at the end of that road, well, Danny had been up there too, we'd sit out in the back stoop, and it was hardly any light, you know, the kerosene lanterns didn't do anything. There's two of them in the kitchen that, you know, as far as light goes, so it was pitch black. And we'd sit out there looking for shooting stars.
That was the excitement, huh?
Now if you lived with your family without electricity, they'd probably arrest you for cruising.
Right. I said, like I said, we were lucky we did have indoor plumbing,
Yeah.
you know, so that was one benefit.
That wasn't too warm either, I bet you.
Well, my aunt Lena, who was Clara's younger sister, lived with them also. And now that we're older, we realize she probably had Parkinson's. She was very feeble, and I'm thinking I was 11 or 12 years old, and I was getting her dressed and shampooing her hair and giving her baths and things. Can you imagine an 11 or 12-year-old today doing that kind of stuff?
But plus it was an extra, I shouldn't say burden,
It was a
my aunt, you know, between, you know, because there was, most of the time, there was just the two of them. Occasionally, you know, well, he had hired help. But I mean, as far as running the house and things, my aunt would, you know, take care of the garden and
Yeah.
go down and pick our supper out of the garden. You know?
And put the washing machine, and then in the winter, she'd lug it up to the attic so it could freeze and then thaw it out when, you know.
Yeah.
And she was in her 50s when we started going there, because she was just that much older than my father. But,
Was the farm there just to sustain their own life? Besides the dairy, did they?
he was a
buy-
plumber, he did plumbing and heating.
Okay.
Then in December of 50, he went in the hospital. In January 2nd of 1951, he had a lung removed for cancer. And the doctor told him he could either be a plumber or a farmer. he couldn't do both. It wasn't, his health wouldn't stand it. And he figured the farming was a healthier life. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, you know, it might have been better for her at least, you know, and then the milking machine would break down, the battery in the radio would run out, and they'd have to run to get new parts and whatnot. And then, and of course, when their nephew, who was like their son, was killed on Okinawa, I think that just took the heart right out of them.
I don't know if we mentioned to you folks, that's his memorial down in front of the church with the
On Route
townspeople.
20.
Right down here on Route 20. It's well, it's
It's
pretty well.
in that book there,
It's
yeah.
pretty well worn out now.
He
There's
was-
stone memorial flagpole.
Yeah, Danny got someone to put a rope up for us once on the flagpole, but it's gone again. And the pole is so rusted, I don't know. We're trying to decide what else to do there. But, I don't know. But Albert he got the highest score ever in Jacksonville at where the Marines trained him, 96.44. He got all kinds of awards over at Gilbert School. He was just a nice guy, and he joined the Marines.
Used to be Gilbert High School.
Yeah.
What is it now? It's a college.
It's a
The young
college.
lady sitting right here went to Gilbert High School. Yeah.
Yeah,
It still is, the Gilbert School.
but it's not a high school.
Well, they just this year incorporated 7th and 8th grade.
Oh,
is that right?
okay. Then after that, he worked at the Gilbert Clock Factory.
Right.
Because my parents, he gave my parents a steeple clock from there that I have when he was working there. But, so many young, wonderful, talented, smart guys and gals now, but,
We lost in the wars.
yeah. One of Uncle Ross's hired hands was George. He was the best guy. He worked, he was great, he was nice with us. And one day, friends of ours, he was an FBI agent, he and a couple of other agents drove up to the Hamlin farm. And when this guy saw where they were going, he said, "Oh my God." Well, George was a draft dodger, so that's probably why he was a good worker. And when they ever realized he was going to Ross's farm to pick this guy up, he almost died. He was so embarrassed, but that's life, I guess, huh?
And there was another helper, Herb Moore, that would, I don't know, off and on, he would be, his help at the farm. And then
Well, you wouldn't
he-
hear from him for years.
But come Thanksgiving morning, we used to go hunting every Thanksgiving morning.
The first day of hunting was
Yeah.
Thanksgiving morning.
Herb would show up from out of nowhere. We wouldn't hear from him. Do you remember Herb?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanksgiving mornings, he would show up for the hunt.
With a new wife. With a new wife. I think he had 5.
But,
He's in this picture, which is,
Redmond.
which is in that book that's going around. My uncle was in, it was a Redmond club over in Winstead, and he rode his horse Silver, and this is Herb Moore with him on another horse. But,
And it wasn't even Thanksgiving.
yeah.
But yeah, it was strange, because no matter where he'd be living, one year he was living in Colorado, and he showed up
For
for
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving for the hunt.
And Frank and Ann Richardson from Winstead would come over every Sunday. Every Sunday. They wouldn't stay, they'd come over in the morning.
Yeah, help out, Frank could help pay it. In fact, that fire I said about the truck, Frank was with us that day. He was with my uncle. But it was tough. I mean, for us city slickers. Yeah.
But we didn't think it was tough.
No.
We didn't. It was just fun. We couldn't wait to go.
But the thing is, you could never get your work done.
Because there was
you're
always
never done.
something. No,
You're
it's
never
as a
done.
farmer, it's never done. There's
You might
always
finish
something.
this, but there's this here over here. There was always something to do. Yeah. I don't know. Actually, I don't know how my uncle and aunt did it, because they were older.
I know it, yeah.
And, my uncle did all the mowing. At first, when we first went there, it was with horses.
Yep.
And then he had an old steel wheel tractor. Eventually, he got a a real classy Ford tractor with rubber wheels, but it was quite an experience. Like I say, the biggest part of the experience to me is no electricity, when you think of things nowadays.
Yeah.
You know. And my aunt cooking on the wood stove.
It was a hard life, and we were just talking about it today, why he chose that over being a plumber and going back into the city, because they lived in Winstead before they rented this farm in 31.
Probably because there wasn't much money in the plumbing, because when the MDC tore the old barn down, I found a workbook, Ross's old workbook, and he did some plumbing in there, and there was one house, he put all new copper deep troughs and downspouts. He plumbed the toilet and leaded the sink, it says or something, was $19.
Yeah, but what was the cost of living back then, too?
Yeah.
Nowadays, you wouldn't even come in and look at it for that.
Right.
And he had a hired hand, he gave 42 cents an hour to. I remember that,
Yeah.
Tell them about the state police in Riverton.
Well, wait,
This was
that had
at-
something to do with the farm. That
Yeah,
had to
well,
do with Danny, it was Danny.
Skeleton's coming out.
This is after, we were just talking, we mentioned it, I stopped at Danny's for it, come over here. I used to come down, this is,
After the farm.
yeah.
I was married, I had little kids, but you
And-
were still single and
And
flitting around.
Danny and his brother Russell would take me out, lead me astray with
Yeah.
Johnny Ransom, Dougie Crunden, some of those fellas. And we were in Riverton at the Riverton Firehouse dances. Once a week, I think those were. And we just, I don't know, we were leaving there and going someplace, I can't remember, a state cop stopped me. On DVD now. I would love to brought some, but they're mixed in with family.
Family thing.
You
See,
know,
my
you-
father didn't take pictures, he took movies.
Movies.
So we got a lot of movies.
But there's one where they're playing, I don't know who it is, probably my uncle and fellow that worked for him and stuff, where they're playing ball, and the bat is a shovel. Just a regular shovel, that's what the bat is. They're playing out in the fields, which were full of stones.
Yeah.
Because we did a little ball playing up there too. But,
We used to be able to ice skate on top of snow that was this deep, because you'd get a freezing rain, and we'd ice skate on top, down the fields and everything. It was great. I mean,
originally, the farm was a pheasant farm. And I talked to Paul
there's a
there,
picture in there.
but it was for the state, I believe, that
State.
they raised pheasants.
Yeah, he raised
But I
pheasants for the
believe,
state.
I'm not sure, I believe the reason he had to let them all go was because of a bad winter, the snow was so high, the pheasants were gonna get pinned at the top of the net, or the fencing, you know, so he had to let them all go. And then I guess it's from there that he kind of went to the dairy farm.
See, there's so many questions that there's nobody to ask anymore.
Yes, if you know anybody that's real old, and want to know something, ask them now, because once they're gone, there's,
Yeah,
there's no
you just don't
answers.
even,
And you don't think of it when you're younger, you don't think to ask these questions.
well, that's like, I started doing genealogy, and I did my husband part of his family, and he'd say, I don't know. And then out of nowhere, he'd say, oh, I remember him. I said, I asked you that, and you didn't, oh, he says, I forgot, you know, but you just don't, you don't think of it, you
Right.
know. My aunt and uncle, there were 8 children in the family. And she was the oldest, and my father was the youngest. But when I went to get his birth certificate over, well, I went to Collinsville, because we thought that's where he was born, because
That's
that's
where
where
our
he grew
parents
up.
are buried, in Collinsville.
And, no, they said, he's not here. Try Winstead. I went over to Winstead, and they said, oh, there were 9, I don't know who the 9th one was, if it was one that was born dead in between all, or if it was another one afterwards, but. And Aunt Clara is the spitting image of her mother. She looks just like her mother, like our grandmother, yeah.
But I still buzz down here once, twice a year anyhow.
Well, we do the cemetery run. We go to Collinsville to our parents, and to Aunt Claire and Uncle Ross are in Winstead.
And Irene.
And Louie. And then we do Albert, and we bring flowers a couple times a year. And we have twin sisters that are younger than us, And we each take a turn, so every year it's one or two of us taking our turn. But,
Anybody got any questions?
How old was Irene when you were there?
Well, let's see, did we go down
I
her
don't know.
70th birthday or 75th birthday?
oh, we did come down, we brought our, and it was icy, I remember coming over the mountains was
So
icy.
she was younger than that when we, I don't know how old she was.
I don't know how old. I remember her father, Charlie, it was my Uncle Ross's older brother, there was the two brothers.
Yeah, I never heard of her father. Her mother died young too, didn't she?
Well, I don't
Then
know.
Grandpa Gaylord took care of her?
See, we don't even know Grandma Gaylord, it was always Grandma Gaylord's house, see, Grandma Gaylord was in the rocket chair on the porch.
Yeah.
But
That's
all.
what we knew, Grandma Gaylord, you know, we didn't know her first name or how she.
Irene was Grandma Gaylord's niece, or rather, a granddaughter.
I don't know that.
So you're saying Irene's mother was a Gaylord?
No. When I got from Irene is, I never, her husband was dead when I knew her.
Yeah, Louis, yeah.
And then she was living with Grandpa Gaylord.
Her father was with you.
And her mother had gone to New York and died when she was young, so the Gaylords raised her.
Raised Irene?
Yeah, that's what she told me. Yeah.
My
Yeah,
sense is
well,
that
all
she
I know
married
is-
at Hamlin or something, no?
Her husband,
No, her father was a
Hamlin.
Hamlin.
Father was.
Charlie
Charlie.
Hamlin
Charlie.
was her
He
father,
lived in
right?
Winston.
But we never, it was just Grandma Gaylord, and across the street was Gaylord's barn, which of course isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And
The road isn't even there. There used to
No.
be fields almost straight across from
Yeah.
yeah,
Gaylord. That
because
road, I
Uncle
think I
Ross
told you
planted
about.
up there, yeah.
There was a barn, old barn at the time when we were kids. But then there was a road, an old dirt road that went back, and there was a couple fields out in the
Yeah,
back.
they're all
He
grown.
planted
It's all grown up on.
potatoes and turnips on the Gaylord Knoll. See, Aunt Clara every single night took the oil lamp off of the buffet in the dining room, and sat at the dining room table and wrote in her little diary every single night. And most of them got thrown out. I have a few from the late 40s and early 50s. And she mentions Gaylord's Knoll, how they had planted turnips there. I remember potatoes, that we were up there hoeing
Potato, yeah.
potatoes, and we weren't doing it right because we were cutting into the potatoes, and Uncle Ross got his hat off.
Now, I see you would feed the wild turkeys. Did you also use them as
Well,
game? Did
they
you
weren't
hunt
wild
them in?
turkeys, they were their turkeys.
Those were
Turkeys.
Those were
Yeah.
domestic.
Yeah,
Wild
and they
turkeys
used to
then.
peck at me, they pecked at me too, but
There
I,
were no wild
obviously I
turkeys
wasn't
there.
afraid of them, I wasn't afraid of much.
So didn't some of the
That's why I
chickens when
wanted
they
to
went
ask
to
the
steal their
question.
eggs. Under the chicken.
And there was one cow that did not like children, Spotty. One cow that did, so we used to hang on the gate, open the gate, and they'd all go up, and we'd wait till she got past us before we get out from behind the gate. And then, and the horses, of course, they were the workhorses that we had anything to do with. But in the movies, Uncle Ross, Silver, his white horse, sort of white, did not like children, and he was insisting on putting me on his back, and he'd rear up and everything. I had so much faith in my uncle, I didn't care, he'd just put me up there and the horse would jump all around. But I would go in those, they had the straight stalls for the workhorses. I would go in and walk under the horses and everything, and no big deal, you know. We used to break the calves from the cows to have them drink out of a
Feed them out
pail.
of the pail with your
Yeah,
hand.
would you have them sucking on your fingers?
Yeah.
Put your fingers into
Yeah.
the pail of milk, and we'd do that for them. We did a lot.
But there was one time, a cow had just had her calf, well, the calf was still nursing her. And my uncle was trying to milk her out. This was in the barn, and he told me to, knock the calf down and hold her, or her, whichever it was, which I did. Afterwards, this was in the evening when we let him out into the barnyard, I went out to close one of the doors. And she came at me with her head down. She knew who I was.
She remembered you, right?
Of course, I jumped behind the door, and my uncle said if she ever hit it, she'd have crushed me. Man, I turn around and she's charging at me. But she remembered. That I treated her baby bad, I guess.
Aunt Clara used to ask me to go with her blueberry picking, just to keep her company. And I can remember standing on a rock down there. They had great blueberries down across from the house. And I stood on the rock and I sang. My singing days are over, but just, it was great. It was.
Great. Maybe got any questions, so we could ask.
broken arms.
Oh, yes.
Everything was turpentine.
Gum turpentine.
Any injury? Yeah. Well, I broke my arm up there, I fell off a seesaw. My wrist was bent way out, he straightened it out, put turpentine on it. I went to the hospital.
Yeah, your
but,
mom and dad came and got you,
yeah.
yeah.
Everything was turpentine.
That's like, one time we were going down looking for a cow that had calved down in the pasture. And we were in the woods, and Uncle Ross had stopped up ahead of us, and I was on the old horse, Chubby. And he turns around and he says, "Move the goddamn horse, you got him in a bee's nest." But that horse would not move because he knew kids were on him. He just stood there stamping his feet.
And occasionally the cows would get out and go down here to the old road. We'd have to drive it back, sometimes through the woods, and sometimes right up Route, of course you wouldn't do it now, right up Route 20
With
here.
the traffic now, yeah. Or if they calf down there, you put the calf in the back of the pickup and tie the horse to the, and have the cow and have them follow us back up to the farm.
There was a lot of experience.
But even for my kids, we have 8.5 acres. And we had horses, ducks, rabbits, dogs, cats. And Danny came home with a note from his teacher one day that he was telling tales in school that he had 20 ducks in his backyard. And I wrote back to the teacher and I said, well, he does. So our kids even have had more of an experience than my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren. Nope, they don't have any of that either. Or the horses getting loose. We had horses in this little rickety fence when we first bought this property. And Bob went up and he said, I don't think the fence is quite that big, quite that far. And of course, they were loose, and once you got too loose, forget it. They were gone. He took pails of grain and a couple of leashes and went looking for them, and finally found them.
But I remember one time also, when Uncle Ross, bull got loose. Of course, I don't know about him, but I didn't fool with the bull.
No.
I didn't take the bull by the horns. There was a grapevine area between the house and the barn, right up by the ice house, between the road and the ice house. And he got loose, and my uncle could not catch him, so he saddled up the horse, and he chased him. He finally lassoed him and got him in the barn.
He had no fear because he would walk in front of that bull like this with his back to him, he had no fear of it. Well, tell him when Dad's gas line froze.
Oh, yes. I believe it was on the way up here. In the wintertime, the gas line on my father's car froze up. I can't remember if we were already here or part way up here. And anyhow, we got in touch with my uncle, and he came down and thawed it out with his blowtorch.
And 4th of
Right,
July,
that
we'd
might
shoot
have
out
worked.
fireworks down through the back field there. And we'd sit on the back porch, and they had like I thought it was like a drain pipe for
Yeah, they used to launch it, rockets. But that depended on the weather.
And who set off?
Oh, that was Danny's uncle. Johnny Nelson, he set off dynamite down here. Well, it was Danny's uncle and aunt that owned the Four Corners down here at the store.
When we were first here, yeah.
Yeah, the first store, not the one on the other side.
See, there were a lot of boys for him because he had all the Nelson boys, all the Ransom boys, and I had Eleanor Ransom, Barbara Stacy, and Barbara Nelson. That was it for girls. A lot of boys. I took piano lessons and I walked from the farm all the way down Route 20 to Florence Ransom for a piano lesson, which used to be the post office. I don't know whose house it is now, but Mary Rance. No, I don't know. No.
The old post office here, Florence's house?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that was the post office.
What's their name?
I'm not sure the name, are a very nice couple that, just beautiful inside that house, you should see it, it's lovely.
All I remember is the piano. And the post office, yeah, that was the post. And can you imagine, I was young, and I'm walking all by myself all the way down, and you wouldn't do that today. Times have changed. Times have changed back home, too. We used to have 3 or 4 farms out by us. We're the only ones left, and we don't have any animals but one little dog now. Because our youngest boy, if it doesn't have an engine, he doesn't want any part of it. He told us that, so. The horses are gone.
We answer any questions?
So it was just you and your sister and brother that were on the farm, you didn't have any other siblings?
We
Well,
have
yeah,
twin sisters.
But they're,
And
They're 8 years younger than we are.
they didn't go to the farm?
Not like we do
well,
now.
no, they come once in a while for a little while.
Karen, Maureen hated it. She hated the animals, she was afraid of them, she didn't like any part of it. She'd go out on the corner and wait for my mother or father to pick her up. Karen, they didn't go like we did, no. We just loved living there, you know, it was, because we lived there all summer. And we get a week's
They used to bring
vacation.
their friends.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
once a year, well, there's a picture, I don't know if you saw it, the picture in the
Chronicle.
paper. There's a pickup truck, well, other than Danny and Russell that are on that picture, the rest of the people are from West Springfield.
There were 4.
My mother would bring down a couple of friends of each
Two
of
for me
us.
and 2 for you, yeah.
For a
And then
day.
Russell and Danny and you and I, yeah. And I was driving the truck, and I don't know if anybody knew we were doing that.
Well, we used to drive the trucks a little when we shouldn't, when my aunt went
They didn't bother
shopping.
you back then, no one
No.
bothered you.
No, well, we
Oh,
were
didn't
on
go
the
out on the
farm.
road, we'd stay down the farm or on the road leading down past the Gaylord house, yeah. But, yeah, we would drive a
One
little
time, I
more than
guess we
should.
didn't load the hay right, way down past, straight out from the back porch.
Mhm.
And coming up around one of the corners, the load went.
And we've got a picture, I don't know if it's in that book or not, of a load of hay that didn't make it through the barn doors, too.
That's kind
And
of
it's
a
out on
faded
the-
picture,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, see, but my father took a lot of movies, you know. I wasn't afraid because I remember I was pulling a cow and it didn't want to come and I just kept tugging on it.
That was all Lou say then?
Yeah,
Before
Oh,
it
yeah.
did?
Oh, yeah, no gales.
no.
In fact, my uncle, I don't know how many years prior to, before he closed it, he did get a hay loader.
Oh, really? Oh, see, I don't remember
But
that.
a lot of places you couldn't use it because of the stones, too many stones, it was broken, you know, it'd get broken. Yeah. But 99% of it was by hand, yeah.
By hand.
Yeah.
We take the rake, the hay rake, and just make the windrows, and then we flop them like this, yeah.
And try and lift them up. Some of them were heavy.
But it was, like I said, to us, it wasn't work, it was fun. But then after, when we go back, Danny and Russell and even Billy sometimes would go up and help, you know.
Well, my uncle had a lung removed.
51, January.
51.
He was in the hospital, can you believe it, 6 weeks when he had a lung removed? Can you imagine today being in for 6 weeks?
But neighbor Cole
Yeah, she,
and other neighbors did all his
Oh.
haying for him that year.
yeah, they did a lot for him that year. Aunt Clara's got it written in some of her notes, yeah.
That's, which nowadays are not that neighborly type, you know what I mean? It's, you know, they all pitched in to help
Yeah,
get his hay in.
yeah. And then she would write, like, when they had the memorial, when they built this monument for Albert, it says all his friends and neighbors, and she wrote in her notes, but that doesn't bring our boy home.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And she talked about her sister Lena. She said, the poor soul.
Well, she was all crippled up with arthritis too.
Well, we thought it was
Later in years.
Parkinson's.
Well,
We don't
whatever.
really know, you know, back then. And she died Lena died the December before Aunt Clara died.
How old was he when he got killed as a Marine?
25.
How old?
25. It's on Okinawa.
Yeah, nothing like the Marine, so once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah. You know, he was in his early 20s when he joined up. He had been over there 9 months when he was killed.
Any questions?
Anybody have a story to tell? Andy, do you have a story to tell? Or-
I'm David's wife, and I
That's
didn't
me.
know, I didn't know Ross or Claire at all, because I didn't meet David till long after, but to this day, I feel like they were part of me and my children. My boy, I have 4 boys, they are so attached to this area, I can't even tell you how attached. We used to come here all the time. We'd come to Danny's house, we'd come to Russell's, we were at the bicentennial parade with them. But we came all the time. My kids still to this day call them Uncle Ross and Aunt Claire, and they never even saw them. They never even saw their grandparents.
That's
Oh, I
We are
remember
s-
one year we stopped by Danny's house when he lived down below there. And he had a pony and a little wagon, a little buggy.
My
And,
son fell in one of his ponds.
My wife, I know it was like the 4th of July or something, we had a party, we just stopped in.
He doesn't
My
just
wife wanted
drive
to
a
go ride in
regular
the pony
pony.
buggy.
I mean, he just
He took
flew
off.
with me.
Of course, his folks lived across the street at the time. He came up Route 20 around, I don't know where the path was, around the house, back down.
I was
My wife couldn't
scared.
get off the buggy soon enough.
And then one of our sons, the second son, Brian, we came to visit Dan at the time, and he went exploring in the backyard where Dan has all his ponds back there, and he fell in the pond
Yeah, nowhere.
in the winter. We didn't know where he was. But we finally found him, he was frozen and crouched up against the side because he was afraid. And I remember he ended up having to put on Danny's daughter's clothes because he didn't have soap, that his wife could dry the clothes for him so we could go home, but he ended up wearing your daughter's clothes.
He didn't like that.
But he was scared to death. And all we kept saying was,
That's the last time you went for a pony ride, huh?
Anybody else have a story? Anybody remember Ross or Claire that's here? All the times?
No.
Well, of course, we have Grace. Grace remembers actually, had mentioned that she knew your friend,
Barbara Stacy.
Barbara Stacy.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, I spoke to her at the Blueberry Festival, yeah.
Barbara used to live with
Irene,
Irene.
David, yeah.
And Florence Ransom was your,
The one that gave piano lessons was my aunt. The one that jumped in my mother's sister.
right, okay.
In that book, there's 4 pictures that were taken in Aunt Clara's home. And we think they are friends of Albert's. The only one we know in there is Albert. There's all these young folks, probably high school,
Does anybody recognize any of the people in those pictures at the
at
end?
the end. No, see, we thought maybe somebody
Somebody would
would.
remember, even, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you to Joyce and David.
sit next to her. Joyce sit next to her. My wife Joyce.